everybody, it's Lauren. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Subject to Change.
Welcome to Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast.
I'm Jody Smits-Anderson. I'm so glad you have joined us for Subject to Change. And our guest is Todd Thomas, who's doing amazing things in the maker space and also in understanding responses to COVID as far as air quality and access to outdoor spaces later into the season. We're talking in New England here, so that's really important.
Our guest is Todd Thomas, a maker.
You're using plastic for a product in a time that we're trying to get off plastics.
Todd's not afraid of the tough questions.
You and I have also talked about the ammonium quats and the benefit to using that in a durable situation, along with the understanding that there are toxins associated with disinfectant use. Is it okay for us to talk about that stuff?
Absolutely. So in fact, we actually are going for a sustainability certificate for our coating product because of that very reason.
Ammonium quats and toxins.
The toxicity ranges across the board. Okay. Our product happens to be a very, very mild, very, very low toxicity. We can't say it has no toxicity, so because there is some mild irritation, and because of the chemicals in it, it has a little bit of alcohol in it to help speed drying. So there's a few things like that where you just can't 100% qualify, say, as a green product because of that. However, if you look at it in like the LEED concept, where you're looking at the whole embodied energy and process into it, what we're doing is having a product that is so durable over time that you do not need to then add in wet disinfectants with some really nasty tetragenic properties, horrid chemicals, things you have to rinse, indoor air quality, all those sorts of things, where this is what we should be looking at from a technological point of view.
Mechanical versus chemical approaches.
The little spikes you see on buildings to keep birds from landing on ledges. Yeah, it's called Nixolite. It's one of the trade names. So our product is basically that on a molecular level. So it has a covalent bond to the surface. There's no glues or things like that. So it's an actual, molecular bond. And all these little spikes stick up from the surface. And small single cellular or simple cellular organisms that land on the surface, it basically disrupts the cell wall. They get sliced open and they die. There's no chemical action. There's no leaching. It's purely physical. So they can't get chemical resistance.
Right.
In this case, if you're nicked and your guts spill out in your little cell, well, that's it. You dry up and you die.
So graphically beautiful, Todd. Thank you.
Well, but it gets across what it does and how it works.
We need to be deliberate in use.
When you think of it, any pesticide, any herbicide, any antimicrobial, the whole purpose of these things is to kill one type of thing. And so they are a toxin to something. And what we have to be aware of is human toxicity and bioaccumulative toxicity that can affect nature in a way that we don't want it to affect nature. So the concern with ammonium quats, and again, as Todd said, there's a huge spectrum of them, and this is at the very low toxicity range, is that they're a reproductive toxin. Just like anything, we need to use these things where they're specifically of use and understand that if there is another way that's more benign to address the problem, that's the preferable.
The Rhode Island Take It Outside campaign.
In your igloos, we jumped right over what they are.
Sure. Yep.
Yes.
Can you describe them to us and the purpose of them?
Came up with this program last fall to try to get restaurants and bars specifically through the winter. And it's this thing they called the Take It Outside campaign. So they were providing grants, and there wasn't really something that fit that was durable, reusable, and could sort of meet the structural conditions we need for New England, which is high wind, heavy rain, snow, all those sorts of things. So you've got four walls on these big party tents and a whole bunch of people crowded in, and you're not getting any airflow. So it's bad. And then we looked at this sort of situation and said, well, propane's dangerous. You're going to have an accident. And there wasn't really something available on the market that made sense from sort of a single dining unit point of view. And we said, well, what about making some igloos? And so we said, well, hey, we're in a state that is small, but we do boats and we do marine products. And that's one of Rhode Island's staple businesses. So we got together with a couple of local sail makers and some other marine fabricators, and we custom designed an igloo dome tent. And we're using basically 10-year lifetime material. So this is commercial grade awning fabrics. So it's some nylon that's vinyl coated for the opaque areas at the rooftop, and then at the base where you have the wear. Around the middle part, it's this transparent, and it's a PVC. So that has its own, chemical, ick involved with it. I'm very familiar with the polyvinyl chlorides and, the problems they have. However, they're flexible. They can be made durable. And this particular version of it is a fire-rated material, but because of its weight and the properties of what they use, this is one of the lesser dangerous fire-safing chemicals out there.
Right.
Again, this is a matter of, gradients here.
It's not simple.
Understanding sustainability, COVID, costs, access to outdoors, productivity. I mean, all of the health, all of these things combine, and you have to find how these things inform each other and make difficult decisions about what's most appropriate, hopefully with a long-term view and a respect for all the aspects, all the layers of nature. It sounds like that's what you're doing. You're asking yourself the hard questions, which is great.
And it takes real collaboration.
We actually designed this with some medical input. We designed them with the fire marshal's office, and then also just from our own personal philosophy. So we looked at the very small handful of products available, and we're choosing the sort of the least harmful, the least disruptive. But then also, again, the longevity bit is something important to us. So if we're making these things with state money, and they're being handed out to restaurants, we don't want them to be thrown away at the end of COVID. So one of the things we actually said to the restaurants too that got these was that, well, either you guys continue to use them year after year, or if you don't want them and don't need them and whatever, don't throw them away, give them back to us. And we have some farmers markets and some local community farms who will then use them as greenhouses.
Designing for the long term and for all.
Something that has use beyond just this immediate emergency, but also something that people want to be in. So you have to figure out the aesthetic part of it as well. And then even things like the utility of it. We actually try to make these things ADA compliant as much as we could. That's so cool. you can open these up from a seated position. We have no more than a 3/4 inch threshold.
Fast, creative, and iterative.
Pull that off in roughly a 30-day time frame, and we prototype these with a beach ball. Like I went down to CVS, bought a beach ball, had some stiff wire from the makerspace, and built a model of this thing, took it to the sail maker, and we sat down. He's like, "I can do this,"
We are impressed.
And now my mind's being blown away even further by the level of coordination of the team members that you also managed to pull together, as well as the various levels of, design considerations that went into these. So how did you even assemble a team so quickly and get this through the process as quickly as you did?
Start with all of the players.
I'm a huge fan of integrative design. So the very first thing we did was pull together literally all the players. My old boss, who's the state architect for the state of Rhode Island, the state Rhode Island fire marshal. We got some medical people in. My business partner, she's actually been doing med tech for developing countries for years. A really good sail maker. We had everybody sit down at the table really at the beginning, and that made the magic happen. So I'm a firm believer in a team environment. You can't do something solo. So you have to bring people in who are the experts in that field and know what they're doing. And you have to trust that their advice is good. You don't have to always take it, but you should definitely rank their advice up pretty darn high.
It takes mock-ups.
Your involvement with the maker realm has given you a platform to do that kind of iterative prototyping. Can you talk a little bit more about maker spaces and your experience, especially, I believe, at the White House, talking about maker spaces?
Yes. So, oh boy, geez, I don't even know where to start with this.
Respect for makers in the Obama administration.
So Obama was really keen on makers and maker spaces and sort of how this could be this great jumpstart for the American economy. So it's now a nonprofit officially on its own, Nation of Makers. It's www.nationofmakers.us.
I got it.
And so what it is it's a conglomeration of makerspace, hackerspace, university research, library, operators, and administrators.
Cats and squirrels.
It is like herding cats, organizing squirrels. It's everyone's very individual. However, we kind of all have this do-it-yourself philosophy of, if something doesn't exist and you can't buy it, make it, right? Also, there's a big repair it ethic,
Yes.
Learning how things work and how to improve things and how to hack things.
The IKEA hacks.
Yeah, exactly.
You get all the modular furniture, and then all of a sudden it becomes
really nice.
The power of STEAM.
Because while the science, technology, engineering, and math is good, without arts, it's still not really all that. And you add arts to it, now it has so much more. This entity called OSMS, the Open Source Medical Supplies Organization.
I saw the book that you posted.
Oh my God, right? So
Yeah.
you have to see what the impact of literally a bunch of ragtag makers, maker spaces, little old ladies in church sewing circles, the tens of millions of pieces of PPE that were created in the time frame that is unimaginable, were able to spin up and absolutely saved lives worldwide. The more important thing is they actually allowed a lot of small businesses to either generate from that, or gave time for medium and small existing businesses to pivot into producing those things.
Makers picked up the ball.
Politics aside, it is just a 100% fact that they dropped the ball and stuff didn't happen, wasn't ready for whatever reason, right? But so these folks, out of their own ability, goodness of their heart, and their own pockets, did all this amazing work.
See, that's really cool, because that is an aspect of resilience that I don't think we talk about enough.
Resilience takes symbiosis, redundancy, diversity.
We need those businesses to do exactly what you said. They're able to pivot faster. They don't have the weight of, hundreds of employees on their shoulders. And we need the medium and larger businesses to amplify the work, but they can't retool fast enough to be off the mark on it. So that kind of symbiosis is something I've never heard spelled out by anyone else before. Todd, that's really cool.
One of the cool things they outline in this report from OSMS was the iterative design process was on fire. This network of makerspaces traded notes. You had from Europe to the US to Asia, back and forth in this 24-hour cycle. And in probably 2 weeks' time, you did, got to be 15 years worth.
And here's the tragedy.
It was, you could watch this real time. I mean, it was just mind blowing. And I was a part of this. The excitement, again, of the potential. Now, the frustrating part is that, the makers by and large are getting no credit for this.
That was going to be my question is, so now how are you going to get compensated now that the 80% is going to take it and run? What happens?
Well, so here's the tragedy, right? So right now, you had all these maker spaces that during the pandemic, they have no income because they can't have people in the space. So memberships are down. They were shut down by order, all these different things. Every member who helped make PPE, including myself, right? Everyone did stuff out of their own pocket. They donated materials, supplies, phone time, whatever it is that they did. It's all donated. They used laser printers, cutters, tools. They used consumables. You think, oh, here, a laser cutter, how much does that cost? Well, it's tens of thousands of dollars for a large laser cutter, and the bulbs they use for the laser are bloody expensive. They're thousands of dollars for the bulbs for these things, and you put hours on them, and they wear and they burn out. So what we're going to have right now is we're coming out of this pandemic, and you're going to have hundreds to thousands of maker spaces that have gone broke, in essence, during the pandemic, providing an emergency supply that was needed to save lives. and yet they get zero money from the federal, state, local service they were providing to humanity. And I'm not trying to be grandiose about this. This is literally.
No, but it was.
It was.
It was.
And nature tells us that diversity and redundancy, those are key elements to resilience. And then that's been illustrated in your story. Absolutely.
The victory gardens of today.
Yeah.
It's almost like the victory garden approach to World Wars I and II. It just created the food systems in a diversified approach and kept everyone going and fed. And this was the diversification of technology and inputs and creation through the makerspace. That's awesome. So the question is there a movement to appeal to make this clear to the Biden administration and to state governments in order to get the influx of support into those systems, into I arena?
So yes.
Okay.
So how do I put this? So I've been working for years with some friends of mine, Bob Bounds, amongst others, where we've had some white papers we've produced sort of on how maker communities can be part of this resilience model.
Yeah.
And so both disaster response and economic recovery, as well as economic development. So there's three kind of key factors there.
Respect is needed.
There's all these folks that are working at this. Unfortunately, all these, people are kind of looked down on by the agencies and by the administration, and they don't ever get sort of the seriousness. So we don't have a seat at the table yet. We're arguing for it. However, OSMS has been a rock star in terms of coordinating and documenting this. I'm also working on a data collection project too, with some folks, some other cool folks, to try to look at sort of overall maker impact that's disaster independent. So we're trying to even take an even higher level look at the impact that this entity, these communities have. But the OSMS report, though, gives some very, again, jaw-dropping facts. This is just pure data. It's numbers, it's dollar values to show what has been contributed.
Where is that can-do attitude?
That's why we're trying to rebuild that American can-do ethic. The kids that became the NASA scientists, the rocket engineers, had a very broad education in a lot of different fields, of a lot of different aspects. And so they knew and appreciated, they had art, they had music, they understood a lot of these things. And so these things synthesized together, they work together to, I think, help you become a better, I'm not gonna say not thinker, but it's the ability. It would have just collaboration. I think it's that ability to look at that very high level and sort of, I'm going to use another word that's going to date me here, to grok a situation of it in its entirety.
Maximizing the groupthink.
You can't have one person just setting policy. You really need to be able to get a group of people from drastically different fields together and say, all right, how do we, as a communal effort, create something? And this is different than design by committee, right? Design by committee is a bad thing.
Makers got our vote.
You just be hiring or voting elected officials in from the makerspace, arena, because I just feel like you guys think it through, pivot so quickly, rely on collaboration. It's like all the things that government's supposed to do.
That's
you got my vote.
Well, we certainly don't make a lot of money at it. Let me just put it that way.
So you fit right in, right?
Yeah.
We want to get the money out of politics anyway, so there you go.
Culturally, we look for a pill to fix it.
Let's talk just about the US. We're not culturally tuned to solving our own problems. We want to buy a solution. We want a pill to fix that. We don't want to tweak it and learn and then tweak it again and figure it out together. And people want credit, people want ownership, people want money, which all three of those things tend to diminish the ability to build off each other and amplify each other's ideas into an idea that you never knew you could attain.
More than expected. Back to the igloo.
Warmed seats, a warming tablecloth and plate warmers, food warmers are part of the package.
Yes. My partner, Allison, who again worked in the med tech in developing and third world countries. So she was friends with this company called Warmaloo, and they're based out of Michigan, that make heating packs for infants in, again, developing and third world countries. And it's a chemical product that is reusable hundreds or more times. And it's a state change product. So it's a gel, it's in a silicone bag, and you basically bend a little metal disc inside it. And that creates the chemical reaction, which starts the heating process. And it heats the gel for 4 to 6 hours. And then when the gel is done, you heat it up in any sort of water bath up to a certain temperature. And then it basically re-liquefies the solid that's become. And you just use it over and over and over again. We designed a custom vest that's a heated vest using these packs for the servers.
From outdoor dining to cave rescues.
We don't want to electrocute somebody. We don't want to burn something down.
Those are good rules. Good rules to follow, people. Anyone who's watching.
So we're actually looking at a cave rescue and urban disaster product, so that when you're taking people and extracting them from a cave or a mine or a collapsed building, a big problem is body heat loss during rescue. Greg Moore from RPI, who's high up in the U.S. cave rescue organization.
All right, we can interview him too. I didn't even think of interviewing him.
I didn't even know that there was a cave rescue organization.
Yep. So he actually leads National Cave Rescue Training, and he's right there in Albany.
Spin-offs and co-benefits.
So it really was a lot of wheels spinning, right?
Right.
But then the beauty of that, though, is that allows you to then to go to this company that's providing us these, basically handmade, reusable heating cushions. We were then able to help them out with additional products, and then we're going to be prototyping with Greg and trying out at their cave rescue seminar. But a product that could then literally save lives here in the U.S. and in Europe and things like that by being part of a rescue tool that could be used and stored in ambulances and fire trucks and cave and urban rescue teams.
This is the joy of doing these conversations. The heading of this one is going to be, what do cave rescues, seamstresses, and outdoor dining have in common?
The power of making.
Part of this gets back to is if this is one person, one entity, one company that's working on these sort of things, or one maker space that has a bunch of people like that working these things. Think about if you leverage that on a national basis, what we can be doing for innovation, sustainability, environmental. I can just keep ticking off thing after thing after thing. This is why we need political and economic support for this as a concept. To support these places, to support STEAM in the schools, to support iterative design in the schools. The concept of how to do this, how to design something. I don't care what it is. If you can teach kids to design something, we're going to send people to Mars in 5 years.
Complacency.
I was going to ask if you felt as though we are slipping into that complacency as a nation.
I think we did.
Yeah.
I think the last 20 to 30 years we have lost generations of people, kids coming through the system, where we have done them the disservice of not providing them with arts and not enough of design thinking and problem solving, and we focused way too much on teaching to the test and sort of results-based education. And I don't want to turn this into a political thing, but I think that you can see this in our country right now when we have a culture that is frankly mocked on the international level of embracing anti-education, anti-science, and there's a large segment of the population that distrusts science, that does not like change, does not like innovation. And that didn't just happen by accident. I mean, we trained that out of people
Right.
We developed that as a political platform.
Lack of representation.
I'm also going to say we have done a major disservice to both women, but also minorities and economic things. You know, if you look at any picture of Make Magazine, for example, for the last 10, 15 years, it's about 95% white dudes with white boys at their sides, right? I'm speaking as a white guy here, right? I'm disgusted, but I also don't want to come off as sort of the white savior bit here too.
Yeah.
But I'm very unhappy with the fact that we do not have as many people of color, as many women in these fields when they do this all the time. I've been trying for years to get to the Rhode Island Maker Fairs to get, for example, the lowrider community. Tried with a group of people that I work with to do them in low-income communities, in areas where there's a high amount of families of color. Like I'm also going to just for the record, my family is mixed, so I can talk a little bit about that. I've seen parents pull their kids away from a free event where the kids could have experienced some really cool things. And what the parent said was, you have no future in that. That will never do anything for you.
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't want you getting excited about it. Therefore, you can't go. You don't understand the privilege when you have these things handed to you. You just don't. The maker community, we are recognizing this. There are people doing amazing things. Social Justice Sewing Academy, by the way, look them up. So the maker community is realizing that everyone is part of this global effort, this global team to help humanity. What we need is teachers who can teach design thinking.
Right.
We need to have arts available to the kids. We need to teach teachers how to teach again.
Yeah, as opposed to teach the test, and we need more group project mentality so that people
teach
understand
kids how to learn.
A maker hero.
There are just so many awesome people. So as a gentleman by the name of Joel Leonard down in North Carolina, I have to give him props.
Okay.
He is the most energetic guy. He is always recruiting people for, sort of the maker mindset, helping businesses. He gives so much of himself. Everything's out there on his sleeve. He works with everyone from this women welders group to Fortune 500 companies.
Cool.
He's good friends with the Cajun Navy guy, the General Henry, who's working right now with the Capitol, the attack on the Capitol.
All right.
General Henry. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. So he would be probably my hero right now.
The second
the women welders, please.
Yeah, women welders.
It's on Facebook, Women Welders.
Okay.
Check it out. It's awesome.
Even more than the maker movement.
I think even more so than the maker movement itself. I think it's this, boy, how do I put that? It's I can do it if I want to and learn how to do it. You can, right? There's an MIT class, by the way. I don't know if you've ever heard of this one. Is how to make anything or how to build anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little class you take and you say, I want to do this. And this whole class is about learning how to do it, and you do it.
That's cool.
And it's just a truth. So I guess it's this idea that you can take charge of some of your destiny in relation to your space you live in, the things you work with, the processes you do. And there is a movement of that. This is the self-reliance movement. It's this prepper movement that's out there. It's also the fix it yourself movement, and it also encompasses the maker movement. But all of this is this idea that you don't have to be satisfied with what's available at the store,
right?
And that you can have some effect on your own destiny in that fact. And this can also apply to your work, your career, anything where you can improve it.
That's great.
what we've been given is these human beings, is this brain and the fingers and all these talents.
Yeah.
And if you
That's
want to, you can affect things. So not to be discouraged. And I would say
That's
that would be it. Encouraging people not to think in black and white, but to
right.
think in those shades of in between, of how do we get from here to there? What is the best that we can do given whatever it is, our resources, time, money? And then if we're making that effort, that really is the sustainable
Yeah.
ethic. And not to be hung up on the fact that, no, I don't have this education, or I don't have this job, or I don't have these things. Any little bit you do to improve things is still an improvement.
That's
brilliant.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
This has been Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast.
Thank you
This
so
is
much.
awesome. Thank you.
No, I appreciate this. This has been fun. I hopefully you guys can get that. I love to talk about this. This is a passion for me. So
Next time I get hung up on something, I'm going to email you and be like, I got this
you
thing.
can. Jody knows, by the way. You can, right? Feel free to put that in the in the little tidbits. If somebody ever has a question, I'm more than happy to help. And if I can't help, I chances are probably pretty good that I know somebody that can.
Thanks from Jody and Lauren. What a wonderful guest we've had in Todd Thomas telling us about the maker movement.